Warium is the #1 war podcast to hear real and raw stories told by influential military heroes and witnesses. Today's episode is presented by Jake and David, the co-founders of Warheads NFT, the first project to write history on the blockchain. Join them on Twitter and Instagram in the description below for more sessions like this.
Because most of my life is surrounded or just encompassed by the Marine Corps and then my own entrepreneurship with my wife. It's with the fitness business, but I'm in it a little bit just so I can understand it. I understand what it is about, the functionality and what the importance of cryptocurrency and NFTs to the future of this world. So I do understand that.
Cool. Yeah, glad you got a chance to check it out. That's awesome. I just started recording, as you can see, so we can kick into it. So first of all, you're half Dominican, half American, right?
Correct. Yeah, I was born in the United States, but shortly after I was born, my family moved back to the Dominican Republic. I'm the one of three siblings who was born in the United States. I'm the middle child. So I was born in the United States, but then I grew up to the age of 9 in the Dominican Republic before returning to the United States.
Oh, wow. Okay, so you guys went back to DR and then came back.
Correct, yeah. I in my opinion, I think I was an anchor baby, if you know what that is. It's a baby that's born in the United States to gain citizenship for the family and give the family an easier way to get back. And that was a lot more common back in the 80s than it is now, but it was a lot more accepted too back in the 80s.
That's interesting.
And it worked just fine.
It worked. Yeah, it worked. I was born in the U.S., became a U.S. citizen from birth. I am the first of my family that was a U.S. citizen, natural U.S. citizen. Before, and then my family, when they came over in 1994 with me, they all eventually got their citizenship with time.
Nice, man.
Perfect,
I mean, man. I'm in a not similar situation, but I'm half Swedish myself, and it's the countries are very different in the way people are. So, like for example, with me, I have, even though I live in Scandinavia, I do have the Spanish attitude, like that little bit extra kind of know how to go around and know the tricks, the kind of potholes and stuff like that. How do you reckon, man, the Dominican Republic has shaped you in terms of that kind of a style compared to the US, for example?
It's definitely a eye-opening experience to have experienced both. Growing up in the Dominican Republic, I grew up around, it's a third world country. My family's not very well off, so I grew up in the Dominican Republic around chickens, around the normal population, around a lot of dirt and things that in this country would be considered less developed, and that puts a lot of things into perspective. It really allows me to be able to see from a young age how great the people in the United States have it and how great the U.S. has it compared to other countries. And allows me to appreciate also a lot of the things that we have in the U.S. that other people in other countries or less developed countries don't have.
For sure. Especially the sacrifice that everybody goes through in those places to even be able to go through the day,
Exactly.
That's interesting for sure.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, sorry. Go.
Oh yes, it also allows you to appreciate a lot of the things that you normally wouldn't appreciate in the United States, like how to get food. A lot of people, when they look at a piece of chicken on their plate, don't really realize what it takes to to get that piece of chicken on your plate. When I was young, I got to kill my own chicken and prepare my own chicken. And it's, even though it's not a very romantic thing to do, or it's not very pleasant, you start to understand that food, you appreciate where the food comes from. And it happens also in the United States, when there's something that we call the flyover states, is anything that's in the middle of the United States. It's kind of where people just fly over. Middle America, a lot of people tend not to know too much about it, but there's a lot of farmers out there, hardworking people, that what they do every single day is make sure that we can get food on our plate, but they do the messy end of the work, and they appreciate a lot more of that than most of us do in the United States.
That's for sure. And even like, I'm from Idaho, and even, there's a lot of farm fields in Idaho, and there's a lot going on. They got the Snake River farms, a lot of potatoes coming out of Idaho. And even in those areas, like, I grew up around it all the time, but you still, like, you're kind of blinded to it unless you're in that farming environment, unless you grow up on the farm or your friend has a farm and you're there. But you can still even be in the area and not even realize the volume of production and the work that these guys are putting in. You just go to the grocery store, you get your chicken breast, and you're good for the week. As Americans, for sure, we're a bit sheltered to that. I just got back from Greece, and my good friend there was having his son's 1-year birthday party. And for the 1-year birthday party, we put a lamb on the roast around the fire and eating meat straight off the lamb. And I tell you, man, I was just standing there like eyes open, because I'd never seen anything like that. It's so cool for me as an American. So yeah, I know that our community is really going to be interested in your path through being a Marine, how you got started, a little bit about your wife too. She's got a big persona there, which is super awesome. You guys seem like a dynamic duo. And then kind of your experience after the service. I know you still have, I think you're still have a position within the USMC, correct?
Correct. Yeah, I'm still active duty.
Okay, and then the deployments, and we could kind of touch into this, but do you have an idea? Do they tell you, hey, your deployments are over, and you're like more like a reserve if you ever go back to deployment, or is it still up in the air, or how does that work?
So I transitioned. When I say I'm active duty, it's a little different version of the active component. The Marine Corps has something called the active reserve, which I'm the day on stand, so still active duty technically, but I support the reservists right now. So I transitioned last year. I'm in my 18th year of the Marine Corps, of being active now. So I have 2 years till I can retire with 20 if I choose to. But in the last year, I transitioned into the active reserve component, which we support reservists, train them and get them ready for potential deployments, exercises, and make sure that they have the tools and training that they need to be successful if the country needs them to deploy. And so that's what I'm doing right now. This position currently is not a deployable position, so I can choose to do a deployment if something comes up. But my priority right now is to make sure that the reservists are ready to defend this country if they need to. Okay,
and you're the right guy to teach them, man. These guys will check out your profile and see this dude's jacked. I'm trying to get like you, so I need to get on that nutrition, and I know you have the programs for it, and that's something we could talk about later if somebody in our community needs a checkup from Joel, that they can come to you for that, so we can get into that. But yeah, and just kind of how we saw that you have a couple businesses going on, and just coming back from deployment, integrating back into life. I know these guys will be interested in that, so let's kind of start off. So
yeah.
From the beginning, like what kind of, did you have a single factor that made you know, like, hey, I want to be a Marine, I'm going to be a Marine, and what fueled that?
The one that I remember, the one thing that when I came to the United States and I started watching TV, The Marine commercial, they were very good. Those commercials back in the 90s were very good. The Marine riding the horse or climbing the mountain and fighting the lava monster. And at the end, he's holding that sword, wearing his fresh blues. That's what got me. I knew when I was 9 years old, I wanted to be a Marine. I don't know how I was going to get there, or I wanted to do it in some way. And as I grew up, that still stayed in the back of my mind. And believe it or not, for your listeners here, I joined the Marine Corps, or I enlisted in the Marine Corps for the wrong reasons, which was a girl. I followed the girl into the Marine Corps. I wanted to be a Marine Corps officer eventually, but the girl that I was dating at the time, when I was in college, in my second year of college, I was going to Champlain College in Vermont, and I was doing very well. And she wanted to do ROTC or NROTC and be a Marine Corps officer, but she didn't get the scholarship to be an officer or to go through the NROTC, so she decided to enlist. She said she wouldn't do it unless I did it with her. So that was my my young mind, my young immature mind was like, you know what? That's fine. I can get my associate, and I'll come and join you, and be a Marine with you. So we went to boot camp together. I'm sure she got extra points for bringing me in for the recruiter and for her own promotion as well.
For sure.
And so we graduated boot camp together. I still thought it was the right choice until my first deployment when I was in Iraq, and she essentially she broke up with me when I was out there. So at that point, I needed to decide. I had to change my mindset, and instead of being upset at the fact that I had joined the Marine Corps for someone who's no longer there with me, I had to take ownership in my choices and my decision, and I decided right there and then that I would make what I thought was only going to be 2 years left in my Marine Corps career, the best 2 years that I could. And by changing that mindset and deciding to take ownership for my decisions, I started to really enjoy it. And eventually I thrived. And here I am, at my 18th year, and I'm still in. She's not with me. That's not the current person I am with. She went and did her own thing, but I'm still in the Marine Corps, and I love it.
That's insane, man. That's
cool,
that's
man.
crazy.
So,
but
yeah.
I was gonna ask, have you always been like very fitness oriented, or did that come with the training that came along the Marine Corps?
I love sports. I've always have loved sports. I'm not really good at telling you which athletes are great. I just like playing them. And so I've always been active, especially growing up in the Dominican Republic when you're playing outside or just running around to have fun, you're hitting a tire down the road, or you're kicking a can and playing hide and go seek, all those things. Yeah. And so I've always been pretty active, but when it comes to fitness knowledge and all that came afterwards, more towards when I started to go from enlisted to officer in the Marine Corps. I started to learn a little more about my body, learn how to optimize what I do and how to maximize my performance. And that's when I started to look into understanding fitness a little more. Not just physical fitness, but also mental health and discipline as well.
Yeah, nice.
And you're into. I saw you're heavy in. You're heavy into the kettlebell workouts, right?
Correct. Yeah. Kettlebells mainly because, my wife Rebecca, she is a beast when it comes to fitness, but she was kettlebell certified with Strong First. It's a kettlebell certification process or certification that she got, Strong First. And she started getting into them. She really liked them, and she showed me how to use them. And I started realizing that kettlebells are easy to take on deployment with you because they take up very little space, and you can do a lot in a very small space. And so I took them on deployment with me. And when I did that, I really enjoyed them, and I've just been doing them ever since.
And just for reference for these guys, your wife was an Olympic weightlifter, no? Or still is?
Still is, yeah. She recently got into Olympic weightlifting. Actually, it was like 2018 when she got into it. So she was originally a gymnast. She wanted to be a Marine, but wasn't able to because she has a disqualifying medical condition that doesn't allow her to be in the military at all. But she serves.
And you convinced her to come over from the Air Force to the Naval Academy, right?
So she was gonna do Air Force. She was gonna be an Air Force officer, and I was like, why you want to do Air Force? You know, why not? If you're gonna do military, you gotta do it the right way. You gotta be a Marine. So I convinced her. I was very good at convincing people about being Marines. So she decided that she wanted to be a Marine. During that process, she got to go through the medical clearance process of making sure that you have, you are able to physically get through the training. And through that process of the medical screening, they figured out that she has a medical condition that she couldn't do any of the services. Very upsetting time, but she took that as a challenge to herself to be able to do other things. But to answer your original question, yes, she does now Olympic weightlifting, which is the clean and jerk and the snatch, and she does it competitively. She went to nationals last month, and she's training now to see how far she can get into that career.
So impressive, man. She's also built like a beast. You guys are seriously cool to watch.
Pound for pound, she's stronger than I am. So I can't slack off. So now I'm doing fitness just to keep up with her. So.
Can't slack off. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. So before we kind of hop into the deployment, David, go ahead.
No, I was just wondering that you mentioned before that you took the kettlebells with you to deployments and stuff, and that you can't bring too many things. I haven't been in the military, for example, and I know that a lot of our community hasn't gone to the military. Just out of curiosity, what things do you guys usually bring there? Like, just personal items, or can you bring just more stuff, for example?
It would depend on the deployment. The Marine Corps does two main types of deployment. One is a Marine Expeditionary Unit, which is the Marines go on a ship with the Navy, and they roam around the Pacific or the Atlantic or anywhere in the world, and we are ready for anything that may happen in the world, so we can get there very quickly. So we have Marines and ships across the world. That's one type of deployment. That's the most common type of deployment. Then we have other deployments that we do when we fly over to actual combat zones. During when we had Operation Iraqi Freedom or Enduring Freedom, when we had either to go to Iraq or Afghanistan, you also have those kinds of deployments. And those deployments are two very different types. When you're on a ship, you are a lot more condensed in the space that you have, because you got to fit a lot of people into a relatively small space and still be able to fit all the equipment, all the weapons, and all that stuff on that ship. So you are allowed to take your essential items, uniform items, and then weapons and things that you need on that deployment. When it comes to workout equipment, ships do have small gyms, but they're not very developed gyms where you can do anything you want. So Marines tend to bring, pull-up bars or kettlebells, sandbags, TRXs, things like that. If you go to Iraq or Afghanistan, where you're going to spend a lot of time in ground or on the ground, and it's going to be a long period of time, several months, then Marines tend to build a tent where they have weights and things like that. Still not very developed, or not very, you don't have machines, or no, mainly free weights, but enough to get them to keep up with your fitness. And Marines are getting very creative. You have your body weight too, so we do a lot of that body weight exercise.
Nice, cool.
Very cool. Yeah. So let's go back to when you when you first enlisted. How long did it take for you to go off on your first deployment, and kind of walk us through what that was like being deployed for the first time? Was it like your expectations? And how did that go?
That's a good question. I enlisted in the Marine Corps in 2005, and then I deployed in 2007. So roughly 2 years, and that included all the training that you do, boot camp, MOS or job training, and some extra training in between. And then the training that it takes prior to deployment and then deployment. So I was essentially, from the time I enlisted, I took a pretty direct route to deployment. And deployed in 2007, and I went on a Mu, which is a ship that I told you about that we were on. And that's my first deployment. That ship deployment went straight to Iraq. So I got to experience both the ship deployment and the ground deployment in one, which was great. Marines enlist in the Marine Corps, or they commission in the Marine Corps because they want to deploy. For the most part, that's what they want to do. Otherwise, they would just, if they wanted just money or anything else, they would do something else that's a little easier, like, I don't know, Air Force if they can, the Navy, or some other things like, or the Army. But the Marine Corps, the boot camp and OCS and TBS, all those things are a lot more difficult to pass. So if you're going to be a Marine, you're doing it because, for the most part, because you want to deploy. So I was very excited to deploy, very excited to do what I was meant to do, what I was trained to do, which was deploy and win wars. So getting the opportunity, I was very excited. When I first got there, honestly, it was very hot. The excitement, I think, overshadowed any of the negative experiences that I had, because I knew I was getting the opportunity to do something I really wanted to do. And then we got into our first firefight and first explosions with IEDs, improvised explosive devices. And then things started getting real, because you read about it, you hear about it in the news, and it's very far from home. So you think it just happens to other people. When we got there and it happened to me, I was, you start to question your decisions, but at the same time, all the training that you do takes, it overcomes you, and you start to just take action. You start realizing, wow, all this training really, really does help. It really does provide me the tools that I need to be able to make it back home alive. So you start doing things automatically. On that first deployment on July 2007 is when I got hit by an IED. By hit by an IED, I mean that I was on a truck, and the truck got hit by an IED, and I got shrapnel in my hands, some damage to my ears, and a pretty heavy concussion. But I was still able to.
Okay, so just for a second.
Yeah.
This is where you earned your Purple Heart, or this is a separate occasion?
That is where I earned my Purple
Heart. Oh wow! So it was straight out the gate.
Straight out the gate. Yeah.
Wow.
Damn.
Yeah, okay, sorry. Now I'll let you get back into it.
Yeah, all good. If any of your listeners or anybody who hasn't been around a deployment or hasn't been around and kind of had the explosions, what you see is but if they have played video games before, if you've played Call of Duty or any of those video games where you hear a bang or you get hit with something like an explosion and everything or you watch a movie where everything goes like slow motion, the colors are kind of gone and everything's fuzzy, that's exactly what it feels like. But you're walking around kind of dazed and everything seems like it's slow motion because your mind is trying to process everything so quickly that it slows everything down for you. So that happened, and then we were ambushed at the same time. So we had to take action. Now, one thing that I won't tell many people, but I will tell you, is that I don't remember
Did we lose it?
Yeah, I think so.
Joel, I think we lost you. I can see you now, but I can't hear you.
Nope.
Can't hear you. Maybe the headphones died. Oh, now muted. Now unmuted, but still can't hear you, huh? No. Yeah, no worries. Well, yeah, hey, Joel's professional at cliffhangers. He's like, I'm gonna tell you something, and then it cuts up.
Let's see.
So crazy, man! Right off the gate, getting ambushed like that.
That's insane.
Imagine.
I can't. That's the thing. It's so like difficult
No, yeah.
to think like how would someone react in certain situations, you know?
Yeah, pretty crazy. And after, I mean, from what we know, which is not much, the Marines training is like badass, top notch. Other than maybe SEALs, maybe they're equal. Probably Joel will tell us that Marines is more badass. Maybe Goggins will tell us that SEALs are more badass. But the thing is that super, super badass training. And then when you actually get into the heat of the moment, you realize, like he said, everything's just kicking in. That's probably a pretty crazy feeling.
For sure, man.
I think he's trying to hop in and out.
Yeah.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Now we can hear you.
Can you see me?
Perfect. Yeah, perfect.
Now
All
we can
right.
see you.
Sorry about that. I don't know what happened. I got
No
a call in
worries.
between there, and then all things. You can probably cut that out there for your
okay.
listeners.
It's
Or
okay.
Yeah, no sweat, no sweat.
What was that? Let's see.
You said that you were
think I
about to
was
tell
telling
us
you the
something
story.
that you didn't. Yeah.
Oh yeah, cliffhanger. So when I got hit by the IUD, I don't remember all of the actions that I took immediately after. I don't remember getting out of the vehicle. I don't remember, firing back at our enemies. I don't remember any of it until I got back to the medical area where they had to check me out. Now, everybody was telling me during that time, everybody told me that I was doing exactly what I was supposed to be doing. So you get out of the vehicle and you do your perimeter checks, and then you aim down and people call commands, and you do what you got to do. I don't remember any of that, but I was doing that. And that's a testament to the training that you get in the Marine Corps, how paying attention and being able to do those things even when you're essentially not conscious of what you're doing, but you're still doing the right things. And you hear those stories with law enforcement too, where sometimes they're in a fight or they get, something happens where they lose consciousness, but they're still performing their duties as law enforcement or as military members. And it happens more often than people think. So testament to the training that we get.
Wow.
I still was able to do what I was supposed to and make it back home alive.
Wow.
And how much time do you think surpassed from that when you got struck and you lost that memory to when you got back to the medical area?
It was at least a couple of hours. So
hours? No shit.
Yeah, I am now actually going through TBI, which is traumatic brain injury screenings, just to make sure that everything's good in my brain. There's a lot of my life that I can't remember. That's very fuzzy prior to the explosion. So there's a lot of stuff like when I went to middle school, high school, that I just can't remember. And when I would go back home, somebody would come up to me and say, like, "Hey, long time no see," and I could not place that person anywhere in my life. But I got really good at using context clues to figure out who the person was. I just pretend like you know who they are, and you eventually figure it out. And with social media, Facebook really does help kind of put pieces together, because you start to see who knows who. Like if you know this person, you're like, oh, this person, and you're friends with 50 other people. Then you start figuring out, oh, okay, those 50 people are from high school, so this person must be a high school friend. So it helps.
Wow. And just a quick note, because I know me and David are fans of Dr. Daniel Ammon. Have you heard of Ammon clinics at all, or where are you getting these TBI scans done, and how is that process going?
I have, but I have not gone into or done anything to that capacity yet. I'm in the initial stages of getting that done, of getting my TBI. So by initial stages, I mean I'm getting screened first by my local medical centers, and they're taking notes and putting everything on my medical record to eventually and hopefully be able to go to a more complex screening that they have in Camp Lejeune or Camp Pendleton, California. Camp Lejeune is in North Carolina, or Camp Pendleton, California, to be able to have a more proper screening. And thanks to technology and also, believe it or not, the NFL and football, because they are very conscious about TBI, traumatic brain injuries, in there. So the technology it's a lot better now than it was when I first got hit by the IED. So using that current technology, hopefully in the near future, to figure out the extent of the damage, if any, that's up there.
That's interesting.
Okay.
Also, after all this happened, we can have this all sorts of people. There's people that something happens and they decide to move on and try something else, or that they decide to go back and try even harder. How did this experience make you feel after when you got back into ground, and did it take time for you to kind of get back into it, or were you immediately able to kind of perform and all that stuff?
The Marine Corps kind of just monitored me for 48 hours, and they're making sure that I wasn't with the concussion and after the explosion, that I was still able to perform. And I showed signs that I was pretty good. I knew that there was some gaps in my memory at the time, but I thought they would come back with time. And I just wanted to stay there. No Marine ever wants to go home and get flown home and leave their buddies behind. It's not what we do. So we want to go and finish the deployments, and that's what we want to do. I asked to stay, and so they let me stay. I think that having that experience with the deployment, and I remember at that time, my girlfriend at the time, she broke up with me during that. Well, not broke up, but she cheated on me during that time. And so all happened, it's all overlapping. It happened around the same time. And I decided at the time, it's like, I want to stay in the Marine Corps. I want to make the best of it, at least for the next couple of years. And so being on that deployment and sharing my experiences with other Marines back home and earning the Purple Heart, I think that allowed me a mental shift. It gave me a mental shift to be able to say, maybe this is what I want to do. I want to be able to continue to help other Marines, inspire Marines, lead Marines, do this, because I realized I was very good at it. Another thing that I did not let myself do is be seen as be labeled as someone who had an injury, or someone who was maybe that needed some more assistance. I worked very hard to not let others label me as someone who had a TBI, because I didn't want that label. And I think, and even then I realized that if I had that label, I would, and I used that label, I would essentially rely or make that label define me. And I didn't want people to define me with that. I wanted people to define me for my actions and things that I had done and my performance. And so having that mindset of saying, I don't want to be a victim, having the non-victim mentality, I don't want to be a victim, that kind of helped me get past the fact that I had gone through this experience and didn't let others treat me any differently, which then eventually worked out for the best.
Yeah.
Right.
In your training.
And there's that aspect of it.
Yeah, sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say in your training when you were in the States, did you have that person that would come up to you and explain what you have been doing after the deployment and all that stuff, or were you kind of a bit naive of that kind of the victim situation, if you know what I mean?
I don't think anybody explained it to me. I just saw it in others, right? In other things, in other people. I saw other people had gone through similar situations, and they let that define them. That was their story, and that was the only story they told. I didn't want to have to be the only story that I told. Now, there are many other Purple Heart recipients and people who have gone through a lot more, who've gotten more severe injuries than what I got. And those people who are now public speakers or motivational speakers or help others, they will tell you they have a similar mindset of, I don't want to be a victim. I want to show others how to overcome. Again, their injuries are a lot more severe than mine. So I looked at them as inspiration and said, I can do, I can change my mindset and be a person that inspires others versus a person that is looking for something to be given to me.
For sure. I mean,
right.
we've been in contact with the.
Do you think there's two sides to the?
I think the camera is like a bit backwards, like the noise. But I was just going to say that we've been chatting with Jason Redman, and he has a very interesting kind of similar attitude that you have as well. With the, I'm not sure if you're aware who Jason Redman is, but he well, he's also pretty inspiring in terms of the kind of victim feeling and not feeling pity for oneself and stuff like that. So that's really interesting.
Yeah, for sure. You had a question, Jake?
Yeah, Joel, about just coming back to the TBIs, like, do you think that in that certain time period, and maybe you still feel the same, but in that certain time period that like edge towards not being a victim, that's super beneficial to get you through, those specific hard times. But then the other side of it that, TBIs are a lot more common than we think. Or that we used to think, I guess. I think now, and especially where you're going through the pre-screening processes, and do you think that it's also something that we recognize that, hey, TBIs are more common and can happen actually from brain injuries from childhood if you hit your head too hard off the bike, or if you've been in a car accident or something like that, and that it's not something to necessarily label yourself in any bad way at all, and actually just kind of squash that under the table and just move on. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. TBIs are they could be a ticking time bomb, right? It could be something that happens, and like I said before, the NFL has done a phenomenal job of being able to make this a more to help people understand what happens with TBIs, concussions, and all those other things. We play sports from a young age, and you could, get collide with your head with something, and you may have a traumatic brain injury at that point. And some people do experience a shift in the mood and other just a mindset after a traumatic brain injury. And a lot of people, before the research in TBI would just say, it's like, get over it, it's just a concussion, just this, just that. But now we have a lot more technology, a lot more research, a lot more understanding. We have some tools that can help people, and it's something that allows people to be able to, this technology is something that allows people to be able to then continue living their life normally while still be able to kind of understand, like, this happened to me and I need to take care of myself. The brain is a very complex thing, and it regulates everything in your body. So if there is a dramatic change in your mood after something like a potential concussion or any other symptoms of TBI, and anybody can look them up, all those symptoms, start realizing there's something's off. Don't be afraid to go look, because the injuries don't have to be visible. They can still be there and you not know it's happening. And there are ways to mitigate and even fix those issues. You just gotta take that first step and be humble yourself, and put your pride aside and say, maybe I do need some help.
For sure. I know you got to be somewhere in like 20 minutes. And this is going good. I got a lot more to ask you about, but let's kind of trim the fat on some of these. So kind of just bounce around. But here's one that I really wanted to ask, because from my perspective, I can't think of any answers to this question, but I'm sure that you probably have some. When it comes to being in the USMC, a United States Marine, that's a big title. And what are some of the misconceptions that come along with that? I know that there's the, to me, Marines are like as badass, along with the SEALs, as badass gets, you know. And so we have this big idolization, as it should be, you know, a lot of respect. But what are some of the misconceptions that come along?
Some of the misconceptions are that Marines are not very intelligent, right? Because we're like barbaric, because we like firefights.
Okay.
We like to go in there and get after it. Marines join the Marine Corps, like I said before, and listen to the Marine Corps or commission the Marine Corps because they want to go and deploy. They want to go and kill the enemy. They want to go to war. But that's a misconception, is that, like I said before, the Marines are barbaric or they're dumb. That's not the case at all. Some of the smartest people that I've met in my life, and I've met a lot of civilians and military members, are Marines. So Marines are very intelligent. They are, I think the word that people I think I would change the word and say the Marines are very aggressive. They're aggressive because they want to accomplish it. Whatever it is, Marines go after it for the most part. Marines don't need a 100% solution. We need 70%. 70% is good enough, and we'll execute. Give us 70% of the answer or 70% of what we need to know, and we'll go get after it. Marines are to take action. But Marines also don't get along as well with normal civilians as other services do, because Marines have that mentality of, you know, there's a brotherhood, a sisterhood. We are Marines. Like, you go ask a soldier what they do, they say, I do, you know, I'm a pilot for the Army, or I am logistics. I do logistics for the Army. You ask a sailor what they do, is like, oh, I am a surface warfare officer for the Navy. I do this for the Navy. The same thing with the Air Force. I do IT for the Air Force. So this, you ask a Marine what they do, doesn't matter what their MOS, what their job is, they're going to tell you, I'm a Marine. And they'll stop there. You know, we all have our separate jobs. Like, I do communications or IT for the Marine Corps right now, but I'm not going to tell you.
And mention what your initial title was there.
My initial one, like before I went into an officer.
Yeah.
So before I was an officer, when I was enlisted, I was a chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear defense specialist for the Marine Corps. But I wouldn't tell you that. I would say I'm a Marine, and then you'd be like, oh, okay, what do you do for the Marine Corps?
That's a mouthful, man.
Yeah. So every Marine would tell you I'm a Marine. So Marines, the misconception is the Marines are dumb. Not true. Marines are definitely aggressive.
For sure.
And that can get them in trouble sometimes, because when Marines deal with people a lot more passive, it tends to scare them. But Marines, believe it or not, if you look out there for Marines who are now entrepreneurs, there are quite a bit of them out there. There are a lot of Marines that started their own businesses because they have that mindset of, I just want to get after it. Same thing with Navy SEALs.
David, do you want to lead into that part of it, kind of?
Yeah. I mean, I'm curious here. How did your transition, like, how did it go for you to go from service to entrepreneurship to doing what you're doing?
That's a really good question. And I kind of had to think about that. And for me, it was more of a mindset shift, right? So I started thinking after 15 years or so in the Marine Corps, what I'm going to do after the Marine Corps. Because as much as we would love to think that we're going to be Marines for life, the Marine Corps has to end at some point. You're either going to retire, or you're going to get medically discharged. So the Marine Corps is going to say, hey, you've been in for 30 years. It's time for you to go do something else. So what comes next? And I started having that mindset. Once you have that thought once, you start to think, it comes back more often and more often. And you think, what can I do? What am I good at doing? And Marines are good at doing a lot of things, but Marines are really good at leading. And so I figured, I've been taking orders for a long time. I give orders too, but I take orders for a long time. After 20 years of taking orders, do I really want to work for somebody else, or do I want to work for myself? And my wife, Rebecca, she has a very similar mindset of, getting after it. So we sat down one time, this was during COVID, and we decided she was working for a gym called Equinox at the time. And Equinox had, they were virtual because of all the COVID stuff, and slowly getting rid of some trainers and managers and all that. And she decided, instead of waiting, we're going to take action. And we decided to go and start our company, Semper Stronger, which is the online fitness business, which during the time of COVID, it was very, very useful. We were able to help a lot of people during that time. And now we're growing and looking forward to the time that I can retire from the Marine Corps and then focus a lot more of my energy into Semper Stronger and grow it even more.
Yeah. How's it been going with that, with Semper Stronger?
It's been going really well. Just like with any other business that anybody may start, you have your growing pains. There's a lot of work. It's not like I work more now than I did before, and she works more now than she did for Equinox. But the work that she does now is a lot more rewarding, and she's able to help. She makes her rules, she makes her time, she decides what's important for her business. We decide together, and she decides, how she's going to do the things that she wants to do to make sure the business grows. And she doesn't really take orders from anyone. If anything, I take orders from her, right? And so she, it's a very rewarding move that we made. And I have something set up so when I retire from the Marine Corps, I can then go full force with Semper Stronger. We help a lot of military members, a lot of first responders, free of charge for them, which is something that we love to do.
That's awesome. Kind of twisting off of that just real quick and stepping back a little bit, because I was listening to Rebecca on the podcast with the Potty Mouth guys, which they're super funny, by the way. And she mentioned that you guys had met at Maryland University, but you mentioned that you were also in the other relationship in that first deployment. So I take it that you guys weren't kind of involved yet, but nonetheless, when you're deployed and you're away from home and you have a relationship, how do you find that balance? What is that like? Is it it's not all rainbows and unicorns and butterflies. So what is that process like? Did it make you guys stronger when you got back, you were no longer deployed? And does some of that kind of energy translate now into how you guys operate?
Great question. And I gave you what my first relationship was like, and it was a failed one, which was my girlfriend at the time in 2007 cheating on me, and eventually that didn't work out. Obviously, we're still friends. We were young and stupid then. But fast forward, we had a deployment in 2017 to 18, and I was with Rebecca at the time. We were married. We still are married. And during that time, that was our first deployment together, our first deployment that we had experienced as a married couple. And this is going to sound cliche, but it's absolutely communication. Like the good, the bad, and the ugly. You say it all. If you're hiding something, if there's an elephant in the room that no one wants to address, it's going to come out eventually. It's not going to come out very nicely. So you just address it when you can. And then you realize that each other are human, and you address it, you fix whatever the issue is, and you move on, right? And then this is the big one. Don't bring it back up again. Unless it is a common occurrence and someone's doing the same thing over and over again, then you can bring it up. But if you say, it's like, all right, now we can move on, and change your mindset, change your, you can be angry. And you can have a conversation. Don't yell, have the conversation, be very stern, be very serious with each other. And then when you decide, and we do this, believe it or not, when we say we're going to move on, we shake hands. My wife and I shake hands and say, moving on. And then we shift mindset immediately. And then we move on from there and we put that in the past. That is something that's very hard to do for a lot of people because you want to get that emotional investment in the other person. Why? You want to make that person feel what you're feeling, and that's projecting your emotions on somebody else. That just builds hostility. So during a deployment, when you have very little communication, the very little communication you do have, you want to communicate as much as possible. And prior to deployment, be completely open about everything, anything and everything that may have happened in the past. Talk it out, resolve it, and then communicate throughout the deployment as much as possible. Letters, emails if you can, all that, just communicate. And when you talk problems, good things, bad things, doesn't matter. All those things communicate. And then both the spouse has to understand that the person, that the military member is going through some tough times being away from everything that he or she knows, and understanding that, being patient for the person to come back to be able to have, to continue having those conversations and continue to then build that relationship. And then the military member has to be patient because they can't go anywhere. They have to stay on the deployment, and understand that, trust the other person for when they get back together to be able to, or they come back physically together to be able to address and any issues that may come up and any things that still need to be addressed. But communication, cliche as it sounds, that is the number one thing. Good, bad, ugly, everything's on the table. While we're all human, if my wife were to ask me, if I were to look at another girl and say, it's like, oh, that girl is very attractive, my wife will look at that girl and be like, yeah, she is very pretty. And that's that. Like, I don't, there's no like, oh, you think she's prettier than me? Like all this other stuff. There's none of that. It's like, we can acknowledge, even if we're married, that other people are attractive. Right? We can acknowledge, even if we're married, that I'm angry at you right now. I love you, but I'm angry at you. And this is why. We can have those conversations. And then when it's all done, here's why. Here's what we can do to fix it. Please don't do that again. Good. Shake hands. Move on.
Bam. Man, I love that. I'm taking notes the whole time. I'm gonna pass this stuff on and utilize it, man, because for real, you're dropping bombs on us. I want to let you go 5 minutes early. Nobody likes to be in a rush. David, let's shoot one more each. Mine's gonna be of the USO. So go ahead and shoot.
I think just a side comment and see what you say. I think from everything I've heard, from your training to even what you learned from being away from your wife, that being in the military is doesn't just train you to be in the military, but it actually gives you, traits in your character that you can use later on in life. And that's something that everybody else should learn as well, that you can train a lot and you can become better and you can use it for different things. So it's thanks for everything that you've said, man. It's super interesting.
Thank you for that. And you're absolutely right. The military is not just about killing people. It's about learning how to lead, learning about patience, learning how to serve, learning about serving something that's bigger than yourself and being part of a team. Those things, if people could experience that in some capacity, if everybody could experience some kind of being part of a higher reason or a higher mission, whether it's religious, whether it's with a team, whether it's with your own company, whatever it is, people can experience that. I think that'll be a game changer for that individual and eventually for the population in general.
For sure. I mean, like Jake and I, we are dealing with quite a few different pieces with this project, and what you said about communication, I think it's so important when you're on, a big operation or like a medium-sized operation or even a small operation, that communication is so important, in any aspect of what you do. So that's really interesting what you said.
Yeah.
Do you want to shoot?
I know my relationship with my partner sometimes feels like a big operation, a medium operation, and a small operation, and I can use some of this stuff for all of that. So that's facts, man. And working together with the team is super important. I know playing team sports when I was younger has shaped a large part of me. David here, I don't know if you're we call soccer in America, but they call it football over here in Europe, Joel. But David played for quite a prestigious program in the United Kingdom called Crystal Palace, and he has extensive experience playing on a team. And I know that helped us shape to who we are, to be tenacious and to not step away from something that's hard to accomplish. And in fact, those are the things that actually speed up your progress. And so, personally, I love that kind of stuff, and I can see that in you, and that message comes across from you, and I really, really admire that about you as well. My last question is, what are your experiences with the USO? Have you been on a deployment when they've come around on one of the tours? And how deep does that relationship go when you are an active duty member?
Yeah, the USO has been extremely helpful for me, not just on deployments. I saw them, my first experience with the USO was not a great one, right? It was me going to boot camp and then spending some time with as I was going to boot camp, I was waiting at the USO to get picked up. And I was nervous, and I was thinking to myself, like, what am I doing here? That's why it was a negative experience, because I didn't know where I was. I didn't know what a USO was. I just knew that I had to go there to get picked up by the drill instructors. That was a very culture shock type of experience. Later, after when I first got to my deployment in Iraq in 2007, I learned about what the USO is all about. You get briefed on it, and you get to experience, and then they actually came in a small capacity and visited and care packages and told us and what took care of us out there. And the men and women who take time to work for the USO or volunteer at the USO or do something with the USO for military members, I hope they realize that they're changing lives, because now it doesn't matter if I go to the airport and I'm waiting for my flight and I go to the USO, or if we're coming back from a deployment or doing a deployment, or even the emails that we get from the USO, that what they offer is gold. The people that are in the USO and greet you, it's just a heartwarming experience. They're like family. They treat you like family. And they've honestly changed my perspective and helped me get through deployments, because they were there, because they were able to provide us with not just information, but care and love. And I couldn't, I don't think the military would be the same without the USO.
Damn, that's powerful, man. That's super cool. I mean, we're happy to be partnered with them. They've been, nothing short of really great to work with. Our contacts there have been really supportive of our project, spoken really highly of us, and pretty much every person that we've spoke to has been involved with USO in some way or another and has nothing but the highest regards for them. So that's really good to hear from you. Man, I really appreciate your time. I wish we had, days on days for this. But yeah, it's been amazing. And I'm going to let you get to your thing now. Thanks for joining us with Warheads. And I'll be in touch, about Semper Stronger and stuff like that. So.
Sounds great. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you all for what you do. And I appreciate what you guys are doing for not just the military community and the first responder community, but for everybody else, to put some awareness out there and allow us all to continue doing great things. So thank you.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
All right, Joe.
Take care now. Yeah.
Bye.
Take care, man.
Bye.